Is Hornady's 380 critical defense load any good, or will it fail against winter clothing? Today we're going to find out. Hello everyone, welcome back to the LocaCarnivore, the hunting, guns, and adventure channel for smart people. You're smart because you're watching us. Well, today we're going to talk about Hornady's critical defense load in 380. Is it any good, or will the heavy winter clothing layers in our Frost Giant Extreme Gel test jam it up and make it fail? And remember, you're going to want to stay through the whole video. We've got great information for you all the way through. Hornady came out with their critical defense line in 2008. Now, I have to admit that I've never been a big fan of Hornady ammunition, and this goes all the way back to roughly the late 90s when I was looking for a better load for my 375 Holland & Holland. And I was looking for a round. I had been using just round-nosed, I think it was Remington Core-Lock at that time, 270 grain. And I was looking for something that would give that gun a little more reach than what it had, and something with a higher ballistic coefficient. And there wasn't a lot to be had in that time frame. Hornady, though, had introduced about 260 or 270 grain. I think it was one of their interlocks, and it was nice and pointy and everything. So I figured, hey, I'll try that. Found it in a gun store at the time, and sporting goods store. Bought a box and went out to the range and tested it. And at least that particular load, and I wasn't too impressed, frankly. The brass was different case head stamps, from different companies, Winchester, a few other things mixed in. So it was obvious they were getting their brass from just wherever, which kind of put into my mind the question of, well, how good is this stuff? Long story short, that gun just absolutely hated that round from Hornady, that particular load. And it might have been a gun thing, I don't know. But here's the big thing. I sent Hornady an email about that problem and hoping to get some sort of feedback, or maybe, try this, try that, whatever. Never heard back from them once, not ever. So that kind of put a bad taste in my mouth as far as Hornady. And I'll tell you what, every time I've ever talked to their customer service people on the phone, and it hasn't been often, but I've talked to them a couple times about load selection and stuff. And I'm not going to run them down, but I'll tell you what, it certainly gave me the impression that they felt that they were Hornady and I was not, and they knew what was best and I did not. And that kind of, like I said, puts a sour taste in my mouth. I have to say, however, that we've been testing various caliber loads in this critical defense line and the critical duty as well with the tip bullets, and they've been performing rather well. I've been very surprised, pleasantly surprised. So I have to admit that my position, at least vis-a-vis the critical defense, critical duty lines of handgun ammunition from Hornady, my opinion is softening. I'm getting over my grumpiness about it, and I'm finding that this handgun ammunition performs pretty well. That raises the question then, will this particular 380 load perform very well? What Hornady did, though, to design the critical defense and the critical duty lines, what they call their FTX bullet, is they took the flexible, kind of semi-flexible tip that they had put on the Lever Evolution rounds, and they put those into these handgun bullets. Didn't have it protruding beyond the ogive, though, or rather beyond the meplet, the nose of the bullet, so that it was flush, so it would feed well, obviously. And they put that plug in there so that it would help prevent the hollow point cavity from clogging up when it hit intermediate materials like clothing, for instance, which is part of the big test that we're doing today, as you'll see when we get out on the range. And then that plug, once it gets some resistance when it hits the target, that initiates the expansion. The difference, though, between the critical defense and the critical duty line is that the critical defense line is intended for use in short-barreled carry guns, EDC type guns, as opposed to full-size duty weapons. The critical defense load in 380 uses a 90 grain bullet. Now that's 5 grains lighter than the standard, traditional load for a 380. Normally it's 95 grains, but there's heavier loads and lighter loads out there, so it's not unusual. Basically, it seems that Hornady in this load decided to sacrifice some sectional density, which is a numerical value, which helps describe the propensity of a projectile to penetrate. So they're giving that up in favor of increased velocity. Now, it's not a tremendous increase. We're talking 1,000 feet per second advertised velocity, which gives you 200 foot-pounds of energy. And normally 95 grain 380 is roughly about 950, 930, something right in there. So it's not a huge jump in velocity. Now, will that affect penetration in our test? Well, we're going to have to find out. Hey, while you're at it, give us a big thumbs up, like the video, make sure you subscribe. We'd love to have you on board at the LocaCarnivore, and also ring that bell so you get notified of every new video that we bring out. The test gun for today's gel test is a Glock G42, and it's got just a shade over a 3-inch barrel, 3.1, 3.2, something like that. Go ahead and look it up. If you find it, put it in the comments for me. I'd love to, I always love it when you folks correct me. It keeps me honest, so go ahead and do that. The accuracy for the critical defense load that we tested in the G42 was very good. I was really amazed at how well that round shot out of this gun. Maybe it's just this gun, maybe that gun and that ammo get along just fine. However, we found the G42 is a pretty accurate weapon no matter what ammunition we've been using, at least the one we got, so thank you, Glock. And by the way, we did a full review on the G42 range test, and we did a video on that that's been out for a little while. Links down in the description. Go ahead and check it out. We'd really appreciate your support. We don't have any advertisers or sponsors, at least at the moment. We are trying, but and we're not going to do shill stuff, trust me. But if you want to support the channel, please, we do have a Patreon set up. The link's down in the description. Go over there, show us a little love. You'll get some goodies, and we really would thank you for that. Thanks. What on earth is a Frost Giant gel test? Well, it's a gel test protocol that we dreamed up after doing a lot of thinking and a lot of looking at other people's stuff, and we found that, quite frankly, most people out there on YouTube that are doing gel tests are not very good at it. They don't keep their blocks at the right temperature. Their distances are not consistent, on and on. I could list a whole bunch of stuff. So we tried to come up with a better way to do it. Now, we do have a video if you want to learn in detail about our Frost Giant. Links in the description. You can go watch that and geek out on it. But real quick, what it is we tried to simulate the cross-torso shot that was the nightmare shot that kept the FBI up and still keeps them up at night from the 1986 Miami shootout, where several FBI agents were unfortunately killed. And we also wanted to look at heavy winter clothing, actual winter clothing, and how that would affect that cross-torso shot. And it's not just enough to put some, denim or whatever on the front of your block and then shoot the block. And I know the FBI protocol is what it is, but we've gone beyond that, and I think we've really improved on it. So what we have is we have a cloth pack on the outside, and then of the what we call the arm block. That's a block that's turned sideways. And then we have cloth on the inside, which would be the inside of the sleeve. So it's like that cross-torso shot. So you got cloth. The bullet would hit the cloth, the fabric on the outside of the arm, go through the arm. Then it would have to go through the clothing on the inside of the arm, and then through the clothing on the torso to then get into the torso. So what we did is we put cloth package on the outside of a sideways block, 2 cloth packages in between the sideways block and a normal lengthwise longitudinally oriented gel block. So that gives us that cross-torso shot, if you will. And a quick rundown, our cloth package is real winter clothing. It's as far as simulated winter clothing. We didn't go and buy stuff off the rack, because that would we wouldn't have consistency because we couldn't find the same stuff all the time. So what we have is we have a layer of t-shirt material, then we have a layer of what would be like a flannel shirt, heavy flannel shirt, and then a layer of 100 polar fleece. And then we made a sandwich package to simulate the outer garment like a heavy winter coat. And what we did was we took some hollow fill, actual hollow fill, polyester hollow fill insulation, and in fairly consistent thickness. Then we sandwiched it between a front and a back layer of ripstop outerwear grade nylon. And this is much more realistic. And the FBI's protocol, what they call heavy clothing, that's not realistic. So we think we've really exceeded that. And we found some interesting results as we've been testing various loads with this rig. It's really been enlightening. So I think you're going to find what we're doing here to be really informative for you. Especially if you live in winter, especially if you live in a really cold climate and you have to potentially face an assailant who's wearing very heavy winter clothing. All right, now we're going to do the Hornady Critical Defense 90 grain FTX bullet against the Frost Giant. Glock 42, 67 degrees ambient, 70 degrees block temperature, 10 feet away. And we're going to see how this is going to do. I think we hit it. Find out. Yep, right at the top. Oh, wow. That really went in. Yeah, well, a win's a win. All right, we brought those gel blocks inside so you can get a little bit better look at the temporary and permanent cavities. We have them indoors here at the award-winning LocaCarnivore Laboratories. The award-winning LocaCarnivore Research Laboratories located at the sprawling LocaCarnivore Headquarters Complex. The cloth pack on the outside, this is your entrance area here, and then they would have traveled through. I removed the cloth packs from between the blocks, and then we travel on through. And this is for the 380s we tested. Right here is at the top is going to be the Hornady 90 grain Critical Defense. That's their FTX bullet. That's the temporary cavity that it made. I would describe it as moderate. Over here we have the 90 grain Hornady Critical Defense FTX bullet. This is where it came to rest. Obviously there's quite a bit of bounce back, a couple inches of bounce back. It's interesting to note this additional cavity, this temporary wound cavity, and it sort of spirals along, so it indicates that the bullet was still rotating from the rifling, which means it still had quite a bit of energy left, which is amazing for a 380 in my opinion. And it eventually came to rest. Looks like it's nose forward, so it went all the way straight through. And very interesting cavity. This is particularly noteworthy. I'm not sure what caused that, but apparently it had some extra zip on it, or it gave up some material. Looks like it brought in a little bit of material or something in there. So we'll pull these bullets out and you'll see them later. All right, here's the 90 grain Hornady Critical Defense 380. Pulled out of the gel. You can see that the nose plug, it was actually in the gel like that, with the nose plug right in the front, so it didn't shed it or anything. Let's see if I can get a good light on this. Sorry about that, guys, folks. There we go. Really nice expansion, heavy peel back. This yielded excellent penetration, better than the highly touted HydroShock Deep by quite a margin. We'll give you the stats at the end of the video, of course. We're not worried about weight retention. We just look at how far did it get? Did it expand well? You know, you geeks if you want. That's just tough. We're not going to weigh them. But nice slug. Did a good job for its caliber and the energy, lack of energy. What's the bottom line here? Did the 380 Hornady Critical Defense load meet or exceed our pass-fail standards for this test? Well, frankly, by the numbers, it failed. In order to get a passing grade in this test, remember we're doing that cross-torso shot simulation, you figure most people's chest cavities, and we're talking very large people, that's why we call it the frost giant, so large-statured individuals, their chest cavity at the armpits is about 22 to 24 inches wide. It's very consistent across human beings. It's really interesting. That's another subject. It stands to reason then that in order to reach the vitals, i.e. the heart, you'd have to get halfway into that chest cavity. And that on a 24-inch wide chest cavity is, ta-da, Mr. Math, 12 inches of penetration. This round from Hornady at just a little over 6 inches of penetration, that's not sufficient. Yes, it would cause probably some damage to a lung or something, but it's not going to reach that heart. And it's not going to incapacitate your assailant as quickly as you might want. And this is the same problem that came up in that Miami shootout in 1986, and that's why the FBI is always so concerned and why their gel test standards have the penetration requirements they do. Bottom line though, we cannot recommend this load for winter carry against large people wearing heavy winter clothes, especially if you had to do that cross-torso shot. It just doesn't give you the penetration you need. Now for 3 seasons, the other 3 seasons out of the year, especially during the summer, it probably would do pretty good. It's probably your best bet or one of your better bets for 380. It's going to give you good penetration and, as we saw, a very dynamic expansion. So it's going to do pretty well. So based on the fact that at 380 you're carrying is vastly superior to, say, the 45 or 10 millimeter or whatever cannon you had to leave at home, this is not a bad load for that. But just keep in mind, if you're going to carry it for the winter, we're not recommending it for carry. Just don't think it has the penetration. Be prepared for the fact you might get suboptimal performance from it. It's not a bad load, it just didn't do well in our particular test. Thank you so much for taking your valuable time to watch us here at the LocaCarnivore today. We really appreciate it. Don't forget to share this video. Let's put some legs on this bad boy and make it go viral, okay? We're going to leave you with 2 thoughts for today. First of all, the ultimate act of resistance is insisting upon facts. Number 2, you know it. Han shot first, doggone it.
Mwah!